Less than a week into 2024, MLB's worst nightmare happened. Their golden child was in an illegal gambling scandal, accused of betting on his own games, being investigated by the league, being investigated by the IRS, and even being investigated by the FBI concerning $4.5 million in illegal sports betting wagers. While this was happening, the NBA had a similar issue. A bettor claimed to have $80,000 on a bet that relied on this player to get less than 4.5 rebounds in a game. On this play, the ball comes right to him. Instead of grabbing the ball, he taps it to his teammate. Moments later, he tells his coach he has an eye injury and leaves the game. Shortly after, the NBA announced he can no longer play, is being investigated, and is facing a permanent ban. Simultaneously, the NCAA announced they were investigating Temple basketball for suspicious betting activity. There have already been 12 NFL players suspended for breaking their gambling rules since sports betting became legal in 2018. And in 2022 alone, there were 1,212 matches flagged as suspicious, potentially being rigged or fixed for money. That is a 34% increase from the year prior. It was not long ago when all major sports leagues opposed legalized betting. In 2017, Roger Goodell said legal sports betting could compromise the integrity of the game. Former MLB Commissioner Bud Selig said it was, quote, evil, which creates doubt and destroys your sport. In fact, MLB was so paranoid about gambling when two of their most legendary players, Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays, agreed to do a meet and greet at a casino. They banned these players for life. But now sports betting is not only legal, leagues support it and are making millions of dollars from it. For years, their biggest fear was that legal gambling would lead to match fixing, point shaving, and games being rigged. A scandal like this could break a sport, and in March, MLB looked like it could be facing worst case scenario. Shohei Ohtani had just gotten his first hit, his first steal, and was about to get his first win in a Dodgers uniform. He was in Korea as part of MLB's opening series, playing the first game of the 2024 season. Cameras caught him and his interpreter joking around in the dugout. Shohei and Ippei are best friends. They are never seen apart and regularly seen having fun in the dugout, so everything seemed normal. But less than 10 hours after this, news broke that Ohtani's attorneys were accusing Ippei of a, quote, massive theft. Minutes later, we learn Ippei has been fired by the Dodgers. Early reports from the LA Times say that Ohtani's attorneys discovered Ippei conducting a massive theft from Ohtani in order to pay off sports betting debts that he had with an illegal bookmaker. Before the baseball world could even make sense of this news, ESPN dropped their own article and made this story a lot more suspicious. ESPN reported that while investigating an illegal bookmaking operation in California, federal investigators had found that there had been multiple six-figure transfers from Shohei Ohtani's bank account to this illegal bookmaking operation, presumably to pay off gambling debt that totaled over $1 million. ESPN had interviewed Ippei a day before opening day. Ippei told ESPN that this was not a theft and that Ohtani had voluntarily paid off Ippei's gambling debt to help him out as a friend. Another spokesperson for Ohtani also told ESPN this version of the story, leading to a ton of questions. Why is Ohtani's team suddenly saying Ippei stole the money when the day before they had said Ohtani transferred the money voluntarily? Ohtani had known about this scandal before opening day. If it was truly a massive theft, you wouldn't think the two would act so friendly with each other the very next day. Nobody seemed to fully trust Ohtani's side of the story. People began speculating that he was actually the one doing the illegal betting and Ippei was just covering for him, or that Ohtani had known about Ippei's gambling debt and paid it off for him as a favor. This would be considered illegal in the eyes of the law and could could lead to an MLB suspension, so Ohtani and his team now had to lie about it. And based on their relationship, this was very plausible. Shohei met Ippei Mizuhara over a decade ago. He was born in Japan but raised in California. After briefly interpreting for Japanese pitcher Hideki Okajima in America, he moved to Japan to interpret for the Nippon Ham Fighters. This just so happened to be Shohei Ohtani's rookie year. Ohtani's locker was right next to a foreign player's locker who had to use Ippei to translate, so naturally, Ippei and Shohei became friends. 5 years later, when Ohtani went to play for the Angels, it was only natural for him to hire Ippei as his full-time interpreter. However, Ippei became much more than that. When Ohtani first came to America, he arranged to have Ippei live in the same apartment as him. Ohtani had no license, so Ippei also became his personal driver. He would buy groceries for Ohtani. The two ate breakfast together every single day before games. He trained with Ohtani, tracked his progress during workouts, and when Ohtani didn't have anyone to play catch with, he would do it with Ippei. Ippei was with Ohtani 365 days a year, saying he spent more time with Ohtani than he did with his own wife. And when Ippei married his wife in 2018, Ohtani surprised them with a gift. He paid for the couple's entire honeymoon. Ohtani trusted Ippei so much that he was not just in charge of his on-field relationships, he became the middleman between Ohtani and his sponsors and even his friends. During the MLB lockout, team employees were not allowed to interact with players, so Ippei quit his job with the Angels just so he could continue helping Ohtani. When Ohtani was in the Home Run Derby in 2021, he had Ippei be his personal catcher. When he played for Team Japan in the WBC, he didn't need a translator around his Japanese teammates, yet he still had Ippei accompany him throughout the entire tournament. Ohtani's star power exploded. Since he was always next to him, so did Ippei's. He has over 400,000 Instagram followers and barely posts. When the Angels were introduced in 2023, Ippei, an interpreter, was not only introduced with the team, he got the second loudest ovation at the stadium, trailing only Ohtani. Ippei legitimately became one of the most recognizable faces in the league. His close relationship with Ohtani made it hard to believe that he would actually steal this much money from him and get away with it. They spent so much time together, it's hard to believe Ohtani would have no idea whatsoever about his gambling addiction. Also, how would it even be possible to rack up $4.5 million in gambling debt if, according to Ippei, he only made around $500K a year interpreting for Ohtani? To many, Ohtani had to have had some sort of involvement in Ippei's gambling, and if this was the case, Ohtani was screwed. MLB and pretty much every major sports league has what is close to a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to gambling. 4 years ago, a minor leaguer got caught betting on the Oakland Athletics. He is still suspended. He wasn't even a major league player, had no impact on the game, argues that since the minor league season was canceled at the time, he wasn't even a professional player, but still presumably is banned from baseball for life. All major sports leagues in America ban their players from betting on their own sports. However, in 2023, 3 NFL players got punished for betting on a sport other than football. NFL bans players from gambling on anything while in a team facility, so even though they made 100% legal bets since it happened at a team facility, they still got suspended. In the NCAA, players are banned from betting on any sport. In 2003, Rick Neuheisel, Washington's head football coach, entered a NCAA March Madness bracket pool with his friends who he played golf with. He was the football coach, and Washington wasn't even in the tournament. But after filling out a bracket, entering it, and winning a cash prize from his golf friends, the NCAA found out and threatened to suspend him. The university almost immediately fired him for his involvement. He later won a $4.7 million wrongful termination case, but this just shows how paranoid leagues are about any kind of sports betting, and it's all because of situations like this. Before this English Premier League game in 1997, a Malaysian crime syndicate went to the stadium, paid off a security guard, got access to the electrical system, and rigged the lights so that they could be turned off with a rigged remote whenever they wanted. They then bet millions of dollars that West Ham would at least tie Crystal Palace. At the beginning of the second half, Frank Lampard scored this clutch goal to tie the game at 2. The criminals pressed a button on the remote, the lights went off, no one could figure out how to get them back on, and since it was already the second half, the game ended in a 2-2 tie. The Malaysian criminals bet cashed, and they made millions of dollars. Match fixing like this happens way more than you think. In 2013, FIFA estimated that organized crime was making as much as $15 billion a year by fixing matches. In a study done in Germany, they found that 1/3 of amateur soccer players have seen match fixing take place. In 2022 alone, there was a record 169 individual sanctions handed to people who got caught fixing matches, and that's just the people who got caught. This can legitimately destroy entire leagues. In the Chinese Professional Baseball League, the major leagues of Taiwan, there have been 64 different players caught fixing games in only an 11-year span that ended in 2008. That year, the government investigated 102 illegal baseball betting cases involving 222 people. The situation was so bad, the league was pretty much bankrupt. The president of Taiwan got involved and had to pass a law that punished people involved in match fixing with up to 10 years in prison just to save the league. But for the most part, match fixing in America has been extremely rare. For decades, every major sports league in America was against legalized sports betting. Match fixing almost exclusively occurs when someone bribes a player or a ref to affect the outcome of the game. Since they know the outcome, they can make a bet on the outcome and basically make free money. Sports leagues in America argued legalizing betting would create more temptation for players to throw games for money and create skepticism amongst fans who will start to believe the games were being fixed even when they weren't. But in 2018, the leagues did a total 180. Legalized sports betting was up to individual states. Leagues started lobbying for more states to legalize, and now the major sports leagues are making hundreds of millions of dollars directly from sports betting. And just like they feared, this has led some fans to become skeptical of the integrity of the game. In January, DraftKings released data that said the winningest bet of the night was prop bets on Jontay Porter. They were predicting that Jontay Porter was going to have a terrible game. If a ton of people were predicting LeBron to have a terrible game, that would make sense. He's a star who gets a ton of attention. Porter is a bench player who splits time in the D-League. You'd expect there to be little to no money placed on his performance, yet these bettors were right. After only playing 4 minutes, Porter ended up leaving the game after aggravating an eye injury the team said he had hurt 4 days prior. Fans became skeptical. They dug up footage of him making this 3 and looking somewhat disappointed in a different game. People were theorizing that Porter was making bets that he would play bad, then purposely playing bad in order to make extra money. But this was just a conspiracy theory. Then, this was released. On March 20th, Jontay Porter prop bets were once again the winningest bet. Turns out, this betting volume in large part was due to one bettor who put $80,000 that Jontay Porter would get less than 8.5 points, less than 4.5 assists, less than 1.5 threes, less than 1 steal, less than 1 block, and less than 5.5 rebounds. That game, video shows him looking like he purposely misses this rebound, then almost immediately goes to his coach and checks out of the game saying he felt sick. His unders all hit, and this bettor made $1.2 million. Shortly after, the NBA announced they were placing him on the ineligible list and launching an investigation where they found that Porter had bet on NBA games, including his own team to lose. However, he never directly bet on a game he played in. He did give confidential information to bettors and purposely left games early. It seems likely that Porter had told someone he was going to leave a game early. Knowing this, they placed a ridiculous amount of money on Porter to play bad and possibly agreed to pay Porter a cut of the winnings since he agreed to check out of the game. And because of this, the NBA has banned Jontay Porter for life. This is the first time the NBA has had to ban someone for gambling in over 70 years. The NFL has suspended 12 players since legalization, and the NCAA has had over 175 violations since legalization in 2018. This sounds terrible, but in reality, legalized sports betting might actually make match fixing less likely. But before we get to that, a quick word from today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by Fishing Clash. If your MLB team sucks and you need to take a break to decompress from all the stress, why don't you just try fishing? With Fishing Clash, you don't even have to miss the game because now you can just do it from your phone. It is an insanely fun fishing simulator that allows people who love the outdoors to enjoy their favorite hobby on their cell phone. When I downloaded this game, I was pretty surprised about how instantly hooked I became. When catching fish, try to keep your combo meter in this zone to build combos so you can quickly reel in your fish to get more coins and XP. You can build your own fishing village, collect all the different species of fish, check out all the new clan games, and try fishing in each of these amazing locations all over the world. I'm already upgrading my equipment so I can catch bigger and bigger fish and customizing everything I can. In 2024, Fishing Clash has become an official sponsor of Major League Fishing, so now you can participate in the same events that professional anglers compete in and win in-game rewards. So please help support the channel by downloading Fishing Clash. Use the link in the description or scan this QR code. Tap this in the top right corner of your screen, go to gift codes and enter code BDE to get a special $20 value reward, including a unique avatar for free. Again, use my special code BDE, get a $20 value reward, including a unique avatar for free. Do it right now. You would think legalized betting would create more betting and more opportunities for match fixing, but the leagues don't see it that way. Since 2018, leagues have begun paying tens of millions of dollars to companies like these. They're essentially surveillance services whose job it is to spy on players, analyze betting lines, track betting activity, and find and report anything suspicious. When signing up for a legal betting account, your identity has to be verified. If you're a professional athlete betting on a sport you play, they're going to know immediately. If you use a friend's account to bet, but make those bets in your home or in the arena you play in, they also have a tracking system that knows your location within a 3 feet radius and are gonna know immediately. If they find suspicious betting activity on a specific player, they can track who and where the bets were made. If this lines up with areas that specific player frequents, they are likely involved and will get caught. Betting lines are constantly changing based on how much money is being wagered on certain outcomes. Using AI services, these companies track every single betting line on Earth and about 16.5 million bets a day. They compare the betting line movement to the historical data and flag the lines that are moving in suspicious ways. If people start randomly wagering hundreds of thousands of dollars on a bet like Jontay Porter unders, the system is gonna instantly flag it as suspicious. Before legalized betting, Porter would have had to make these bets through an illegal bookmaking operation. These systems wouldn't be able to trace it and would make it easier to get away with. Sports Radar Integrity Services, who does this for multiple sports leagues, found over 1,200 suspicious matches in 2022 alone. This is a 34% increase than the year before, but it's hard to know exactly why. Legalized betting made sports betting more popular. More people betting on sports means more potential match fixers. But legalized betting also makes betting more traceable. According to these services, the increase in suspicious matches is solely based on how much better their systems have become in catching people. With these systems in place, in order for someone to bet on a game they could influence, they'd have to go through an illegal bookmaker, which is still possible, but it's always been possible. And as legalized betting keeps getting bigger, it makes sense that the demand for illegal bookies will continue to decrease, making them rarer and rarer. Players, coaches, or refs could tell a friend to make a bet that Team A was going to lose, then in the game make sure Team A loses and win money. However, for athletes in America who are millionaires, in order for it to be worth it, they'd have to bet a ridiculous amount of money on this outcome. Any bet of this size, without a doubt, would cause suspicion and be investigated. Athletes who don't get paid high salaries are almost always the ones who end up fixing matches, and that's why betting could become a massive issue for college sports. In fact, it always has been. On average, the NCAA has had a verified match fixing / point shaving incident once every 7 years, and it's usually situations like this. Running back Dennis Lundy was Northwestern's all-time leading rusher. In a game against Iowa, he put a $400 wager that his team would lose by more than 6 points. Iowa was dominating, but after a turnover, Northwestern had the ball on the goal line. A touchdown here would make this a 2-possession game. It also would have made Lundy the all-time leader in touchdowns for Northwestern, but instead of risking the bet, he fumbled the ball on purpose. Lundy's team, suspicious of his actions, turned him in. Turns out he did this multiple times, and due to his involvement and lying about it, he ended up having to serve a 1-month sentence in prison. And all of this was caused by only a $400 bet. To my knowledge, the most a college athlete has gotten paid to fix a game happened at Arizona State when a player got paid $20,000 to ensure his team wouldn't cover the spread. In all likelihood, $20,000 couldn't convince an NBA player to throw a game, but college players have done it for a lot less. A Toledo player accepted $900 to shave points. A San Diego State player made around $1,000 a game to do the same thing, and one player even got caught accepting groceries as part of a payment to manipulate a game. If someone is betting millions, it's easy for the surveillance companies to catch them. But if someone bets $100 on themselves to lose, that's a lot harder to track, which is why the NCAA is already trying to ban prop bets for college games. Instead of betting on a team to win or lose, prop bets allow you to bet on an individual player to score more or less than X amount of points, get more or less than X amount of strikeouts, rush for more or less than X amount of yards, etc. Almost any starting running back in the country could just get a friend to bet $100 that they will get less than X amount of yards, then leave the game in the second half with a fake injury and make $100. Tens of billions of dollars is bet on college sports every year, so a $100 bet can fall through the cracks, but it's still risky. The NCAA invests millions into surveillance to find suspicious activity, and this past season, they might have found their next scandal. On February 8th, Temple was a 6.5-point underdog versus Memphis when all of a sudden, so many people bet on them to lose, they became a 10.5-point underdog in only 4 hours. The same exact thing happened 3 weeks later after a ton of money was bet on the under. 4 days later, it happened again. Then, in their last game of the season, they were a 2.5-point underdog. When so much money was wagered on them to lose, they became an 8-point underdog. In all 4 cases, so much money was placed on a specific outcome, it dramatically changed the betting line. And in all 4 cases, the people who caused the betting line to change were correct. The NCAA has since opened up an investigation because someone being this confident on an outcome historically is caused by one of these scenarios. Either several players or a single notable player who plays enough to impact the final score bet his team to perform poorly, then purposely performed poorly. Someone inside the program knew a star player was injured and wouldn't play, then sold that information to a bettor who bet the team would lose before the bookmakers could adjust the line accordingly. or somebody within the organization racked up an insane amount of gambling debt with an illegal bookmaker. Unable to pay off the debt, the bookmaker tells them they will forgive the debt, but only if they lose a game on purpose. The bookmaker ends up making even more money betting on the outcome, and the person in debt can walk away without paying. This last scenario historically has been one of the most common ways match fixing takes place, and it's why professional sports have always shied away and punished players for any type of illegal betting, even if it wasn't on sports. It's also why it looked like the relationship between Ippei Mizuhara and Shohei Ohtani could bring down the entire sport. While working with Ohtani, Ippei developed a crippling gambling addiction. According to a federal complaint, Ippei made around 19,000 bets, gambling as much as 160 grand on a single wager. During this time, he won $142 million, but also lost $180 million, meaning he was $40 million in gambling debt. And all of this took place in just a span of a little over 2 years. Ippei made less than $1 million a year, so how is it even possible to bet enough money to get that much debt? If he did it legally, it wouldn't be possible. Regulated betting in the United States forbids sportsbooks from taking bets on credit. This prevents addicts from racking up debt they can't afford to pay off. But sports betting is illegal in California, so Ippei was forced to go through an illegal bookmaker. Knowing Ippei was so close to a multi-millionaire athlete, the bookmaker likely let him rack up a debt knowing he couldn't afford it, because at the end of the day, he knew Ohtani could pay it off for him. There was only a few logical ways Ippei could ever afford to pay off this massive debt. Either have Ohtani pay it off, or even worse, have Ohtani fix a game in exchange for debt forgiveness. Both of these scenarios are illegal, so Ohtani had no choice but to make a statement. On March 25th, 5 days after the news first came out, Ohtani sat down with a new interpreter and for the first time addressed the media, saying Ippei had stolen money from him and, quote, told lies. Made it clear that he never bet on baseball, never bet on any sport, and never asked anyone to place a bet for him. According to Shohei, basically everyone around him had learned about the scandal before he knew about it. The press was trying to contact him about the payments from his account, but could only ask him about it through Ippei. Ippei, not wanting Ohtani to find out, just lied to the press and never told Ohtani. Ohtani's management also found out. Obviously concerned, they also tried to ask Ohtani about it, but also could only do it through Ippei. Ippei told his management that Ohtani had paid off the debt for him. Trusting Ippei, they went to ESPN and told them that Ohtani had never gambled but did agree to pay off the debt to help out his friend in need. Knowing the report was due to come out the next day, Ippei agreed to address the Dodgers after opening day. At this time, Ohtani still had no idea about the scandal. Ippei told the Dodgers clubhouse about his addiction, said an article was about to come out, that it was all his fault, and apologized. And this is when Ohtani first realized something was up. Knowing he never paid off the debt himself, he and his managers discovered Ippei had stolen the money. They made this info public and changed their original story. Ippei was fired, MLB and the FBI investigated, and Shohei cooperated, handed over his phone and any relevant information. 3 weeks later, the federal government released a complaint that as of now seems to be the actual story. According to this affidavit, Ippei racked up a debt of $40 million. At one point, the bookmaker seemed worried Ippei wasn't going to pay, then allegedly tracked down Ohtani walking his dog, then texted Ippei, quote, "I don't know why you're not returning my calls. I'm here in Newport Beach and I see Ohtani walking his dog. I'm just gonna go up and talk to him." When Ohtani moved to America, Ippei was the one who helped him open up his first bank account. With this information, he began calling the bank pretending to be Shohei and stole the money directly from Shohei's account himself. Ohtani had financial advisors, but they didn't speak Japanese. They could only talk to Shohei through Ippei. So Ippei lied, told the advisors Ohtani denied them access to the account to prevent anyone else from seeing how much money was missing. In total, Ippei allegedly took around $16 million from Ohtani's accounts. When the reports of the gambling came out, Ippei texted the bookmaker asking if he'd seen it. The bookmaker said, quote, "Yes, but that's all bullshit. Obviously, you didn't steal from him. I understand it's a cover job." Ippei responded by saying, quote, "Technically, I did steal from him. It's all over for me." Ippei has since turned himself into authorities, was arrested, and if convicted, will be facing up to 30 years in prison. A friendly reminder that today's video was brought to you by Fishing Class. Use the link in the description or scan this QR code and use my special gift code BDE to get a special $20 value reward.